Coming up, as Westfield prepares to welcome the Indianapolis Colts and tens of thousands of fans, the city continues to grow beyond its sports sweet spot. Life sciences, manufacturing, retail, and massive residential development changing the face of the Hamilton County city. And we'll talk with Mayor Andy Cook about what's next. And some with chronic health conditions who require daily monitoring can now gain real-time access to care and eliminate costly and inconvenient trips to the doctor's office. Vocare CEO Ben Park is here with details on Vitals 360, remote diagnostic technology that has just received FDA clearance. Plus,
10, 15 years ago, we were still in a very dormant stage. But there were a number of individuals in our community and a number of elected officials who said, we're better than this.
Much more on economic development in Fort Wayne with Mayor Tom Henry and others. We will have details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business. Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Well, big things are happening this month in Westfield. Abbott Laboratories celebrated the opening of the company's new $37 million manufacturing facility that is expected to create some 450 jobs over the next 3 years. In the week ahead, West Fork Whiskey breaking ground on one of the country's largest craft distilleries, a $10 million agritourism attraction. And of course, the Indianapolis Colts are headed back to Westfield for training camp at Grand Park this week for the first time since 2019. That means tens of thousands of fans and national media will descend upon the city as well. With more on the growth and managing that growth, pleased to welcome to the show, as always, Westfield Mayor Andy Cook. Mayor, thanks for joining us.
Gary, it's great to be here again. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, well, let's talk about the Colts first and the impact that has on the community. I know you and many others very happy that fans will be allowed back at Grand Park to watch the Colts. But the impact that the Colts have being there in Westfield from an economic and really even a psychological standpoint.
Well, Gary, it's huge, and our people are so anxious, not only in Westfield, but the whole state of Indiana, to get our Colts back where we can actually see them. Yeah, it's been a tough year to be off, and everything has come together, and we're ready to open camp next week.
Well, as you look at the economic impact and your vision and others, the vision there in Westfield, certainly Grand Park is very key, very central to that. And that continues to drive, even during the pandemic, was driving a lot of economic activity there in Westfield and the area.
Well, it has. And, you know, the reason for Grand Park was to fulfill part of our financial long-term plan to create a tax base of tourism right here in central Indiana, and it has certainly done that. It has brought not only over 2 million visits to Grand Park every year, but all of the hotels, restaurants, entertainment that is making Westfield known across the country now as the mecca of family sports.
Well, as you look at that, Mayor, because I think Westfield has developed a brand, if you will, for family sports. But beyond that, and what we're beginning to see, I think, is a diversification of the economy. I mentioned Abbott Laboratories, major investment and 400 plus jobs planned for Westfield. West Fork Whiskey, a distillery going there. There's been a number of developments that are kind of broadening that economic base and the jobs base in Westfield.
Well, Gary, it really has, and that has been really our long-term plan. Number one was to create the industry of hospitality. Number two was to build the industry of sports. We've done that with the Pro-X and the Pacers baseball that are all privately owned. We have the new high school YMCA natatorium that just opened. We have the new gymnastics there, Wright's Gymnastics, just broke ground last week. So that is the private investment in sports. but as you mentioned, also to further diversify and to capitalize on our ability to recruit families and therefore employees. We really look at advanced manufacturing, advanced distribution, and those kind of businesses are beginning to come about. You mentioned we have Aptiv that's opening up a lab there. We have Abbott, as you mentioned. We have several other companies interested in North Point. Our developer there just announced Holiday Properties, $30 million, 3 spec buildings right there in North Point. So that tells me people and businesses want to be there.
And your location along 31 and a lot of improvements along US 31 there, you really think you can attract a diverse workforce, so not only the higher end, higher paying jobs, but some solid blue collar jobs as well because of where you're located?
Well, yes, we can. We're on the north edge of the Metroplex. We have the gift, I'll say, from the state of Indiana and INDOT of the 31 freeway that continues to march north all the way to and around Kokomo. That allows us to draw on a ever-growing circle of lower-paying jobs, not terribly low-paying jobs, but to diversify our entire employer base. Yes. Yeah.
Very quickly, Mayor. We only have about 20 seconds left, but residential is booming too. So that kind of gets back to, I think, that ultimate goal you talk about is making Westfield a destination.
Well, it does. And just like we're totally redeveloping our downtown with the Grand Junction, all of that tells me is indicated by our building permits, where we've issued, I believe, 1,200 building permits so far this year. And last year we were a little over 1,000. That tells me people do want to live in Westfield, Gary.
So no growth, no slowdown in growth, certainly in Westfield. Big week ahead with the Colts arriving there. Mayor Andy Cook, as always, thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, good to see you. Thank you.
All right. Well, like Westfield, Indianapolis is also seeing a rebound in tourism. Actually, Visit Indy's Chris Gall says Indy is outperforming other U.S. cities when it comes to the travel and convention business. He's my guest this week on the next edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. Gall is a key player in pumping up Indianapolis's $5.4 million tourism sector. He got a start in the business 4,000 miles away in Hawaii. Moved back home to take a position with Visit Indy as its chief tourism and convention promoter. After a brutal year in 2020, Gall is bullish on the future of tourism in Indy.
We look heads and beds, right? So people travel, they check into hotels. That's a major metric nationwide and globally. And so right now we're a couple percentage points higher than other major cities in terms of hotel occupancy, and that's our lead indicator.
Much more on a very personal conversation with Visit Indy's Chris Gall, including how he has handled adversity from the loss of his father at the age of 8 to his battle with testicular cancer on the next edition of the Business and Beyond podcast. To check it out, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Healthcare delivered in the palm of your hand. Patients with chronic conditions will soon be able to connect with care with remote diagnostics technology developed right here in Indiana. Details on Zionsville-based Vocare's Vitals 360 device when we come back. It's time to go inside innovation, brought to you by Allegiant, pioneering safety. Well, Zionsville-based Vocare has secured FDA authorization for its Vitals 360 cell phone-sized device that measures 6 critical health indicators and sends real-time data to a patient's physician. The technology has also received a patent. Vitals 360 is Indiana designed, engineered, and marketed. And with more on the technology and some exciting potential, pleased to be joined by CEO Dr. Ben Park. And Ben, as always, great to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Gary.
I think this is a story that is certainly a medical device, a technology story, but also a story of innovation. Vocare, Zionsville-based company that really is about ideas and creating things in a barn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, Steve Peabody's barn is where this idea was born and grew up, and now we're moving out into a regular office space.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the device that we see, Vitals 360, cell phone sized device that is really catching fire. Talk about the development. First of all, it's been 10 years in the making, right?
It has. I mean, we started with a tablet originally. Mm-hmm. There was no reimbursement for that, and so we ended up sidelining that. Mm-hmm. And then we developed this device, which is actually a cell phone. Mm-hmm. Not only cell phone size, but a cell phone that has all the parameters that you mentioned, as well as providing telehealth services.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people are excited. You're excited about it, coming over as former key executive at Anthem, United Healthcare. You're very excited about what this is. Give us a description, because this really monitors 6 vital indicators, right?
It does. It does. It does blood pressure, respiratory rate, EKG, pulse, oximetry, and glucose, although the glucose is not yet approved by the FDA.
Yeah. Talk about, Ben, because you're very familiar, obviously, with telehealth and the explosion of telehealth, where things were maybe a few years ago with telehealth, and now, in part because of the pandemic, perhaps, but just this explosion of telehealth and how that fits right in, I think, with this Vitals 360 device.
It does. You know, at American Health, we were doing about 500 telehealth visits a month. And along came the pandemic, and we went from 500 a month to 1,500 a day.
Wow.
It was staggering. And one of the issues that we had is that people had a difficult time using available telehealth products because they didn't have smartphones necessarily, and we didn't have a reliable set of vital signs of blood pressure, pulse, and those kinds of things.
All right, you're going to market right now, literally this week, going to market, moving from that barn into office space. You've already got demand and customers out there. Talk about who, generally speaking, the customers are and what that demand is, at least early on here.
Yeah, initially I think it's going to be adopted by the remote patient monitoring companies and telehealth companies that are already in this space but don't have a purpose-built device. We fill that niche for them.
Can you give us an idea of what we think the potential is here? Because I know there are a lot of people excited about it and think this has some big upside.
I think it does too. I mean, you know, I think it's $1 billion company waiting to happen.
Yeah, very exciting. Vitals 360 is the device. Vocare, a Zionsville-based company. Dr. Ben Park, thanks for coming on, and we will be tracking this story in the weeks and months ahead and look forward to having you on again.
That's great. Thank you.
All right. Well, coming up next, the city of Fort Wayne experiencing a renaissance of sorts. Our Mary Rachel Redmond takes us to Allen County to check out hundreds of millions of dollars in investment in transforming the Summit City. Here's what's making news now around Indiana. Well, last week we featured the opening of the Bradley Hotel in downtown Fort Wayne, but that's just one of many projects changing the skyline of Indiana's second largest city. Around Indiana reporter Mary Rachel Redmond caught up with Mayor Tom Henry to talk about what appears to be a renaissance of sorts in the heart of Allen County.
Downtown Fort Wayne in the late 30s. Indiana's second largest city, booming with businesses and manufacturing jobs. But a once robust economy began to decline by the early 90s and 2000s.
Fort Wayne was a city that made things. And for decades, we enjoyed that. We had extremely high wages. We had extremely high home ownership. We had a number of factories. They employ tens of thousands of people. It's the exodus of manufacturing jobs. We were hit very hard. We lost 20,000 jobs in 1 year.
But over the last decade, over $1 billion of public and private investments in downtown has ignited a transformation in a city that only continues to build momentum.
We felt that downtowns were the heart of any city, that if you made an attractive downtown that consisted of art offerings and recreational opportunities and a significant amount of hospitality offerings, that it could attract people not only to come downtown and play, but to also live and work. And we've seen significant increases in all three. We've more than quadrupled the amount of people that live downtown now. And as a result, more and more investors are approaching us saying, will you partner with us to do this particular project?
And Mayor Henry tells me the key, tapping into a once unwanted natural resource that's really opened up the floodgates to more investment.
We have three rivers that converge in the middle of our city. Our rivers have been a challenge for a number of years. That flooded homes, that flooded businesses, and we fought that for decades and spent hundreds of millions of dollars trying to push the rivers away. Well, it never really worked. So finally we decided to change that philosophy and attempted to embrace our rivers.
And they've done just that. The first phase of the Riverfront Promenade Park opened in 2019, and phase 2 of the Riverfront is currently in the works.
We still have a ways to go. This is only phase 1 of 3 phases. This particular phase, we invested about $30 million. We still have, again, about 2 phases to go. To the east is a new mixed-use development. It's about a $90 million investment by Barrett and Stokely. So we're getting a lot of excitement about this particular area of the river. We've invested about $1 billion in our downtown over the past 10 years, and we anticipate another $1 billion over the next 4 or 5 years.
Have you seen it pay off?
Oh, there's no question about it.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
Here's what's making additional headlines around Indiana this week. Iowa-based Winnebago Industries acquiring Barletta pontoon boats in Bristol. Winnebago says the deal valued at more than $255 million in cash and stock. Winnebago says that deal extends its marine platform and advances its growth into an outdoor lifestyle company. Last year, Barletta shared plans to open a new $7 million manufacturing facility in Bristol, a project expected to create up to 250 jobs over the next few years. The longtime president and CEO of the South Shore Convention and Visitors Authority in Lake County has been relieved of his duties. Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana reporting the organization's board of directors voted to remove Spiro Batistatos over contract negotiations and his compensation, which totals more than $330,000 in salary and benefits. He's led the association since 1989. Well, coming up next, much more from Inside Indiana Business. Stay with us. Well, an effort by Indianapolis's top companies and economic development organizations to encourage more college graduates to start their careers in Indy seems to be paying off. Around 200 graduates, or nearly 40% of interns who participated in Indyfluence last summer, chose to start their careers in Indianapolis, despite many of them not having lived or worked here before that. Now, with more on how Central Indiana's top companies are seeing a return on a first-of-its-kind talent attraction program, pleased to welcome to the show Roche Diagnostics Head of People and Culture, Bridget Boyle. Bridget, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay, first of all, this is the third year. You're just wrapping up Indyfluence, but give us kind of a thumbnail description of the Indyfluence program and what it's all about.
So it is our third year with Indyfluence, and what it is many of the top companies within Indianapolis came together and said, what is a way that we can, instead of competing against each other for talent, how can we work together, come together, and create a compelling program that will draw recent graduates to want to stay within our state and start their careers. And the best way that we can do that is to introduce them to our city and everything that it has to offer, help them establish a network early on, get them introduced to business leaders and civic leaders, and then also introduce them to all the creative ways that they can start to give back early in their career.
Yeah, talk about that, because this truly is a unique program in the country and multifaceted program indeed, giving back to Indy. So these interns are going out and doing community service projects. They're also connecting, networking with leadership as well. So a number of things make up the Indyfluence equation.
Right. They are not only giving back to the city by helping clean up parks and donating their time and energy to efforts that are important to the city, but they're also getting to learn about nonprofits and charitable giving opportunities. They also get to vote, where we are able to make a $14,000 contribution at the end of the Indyfluence event. They get to vote on their top nonprofit. And in this case, what was chosen was a refugee, helping establish refugees in Indianapolis. That was chosen as the winner that was announced yesterday. And then last but not least, we help these individuals get early financial education, because financial stability is important at an early stage in their career. So we do a lot of training there. And we do education and awareness on diversity and inclusion. They get to meet a lot of business leaders.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting this year, you had a record number of interns participate, 600, a big number, and also interesting, and that's that return on investment. And I mentioned it in the introduction, but a number of interns who participated last year indeed decided to start their careers here in Indy, even though they hadn't lived here before. That's
right. I mean, when we really started to look at the numbers of the interns who had accepted full-time offers, 40%. And like you said in the beginning, many of them had never even stepped foot in our state. And so, it was a very compelling program. And in a year where many companies and states were just completely eliminating internship programs, not only did we honor our commitment to these students, but we also said, how do we take it up a level, and how do we raise the number of people that we can reach? 40% of those 500 accepted full-time offers. And so we know that we're going to continue to grow this number year over year. And we already have companies who've never participated, and they're reaching out to us saying, how do I get involved in this? Yeah, I only have 30 seconds left, Bridget. Ascend Indiana is kind of that talent attraction engine, getting these interns. But based on the participation, the increasing numbers, 600 this year, it looks as though this program is not only here to stay, but has a growth trajectory. Absolutely, yes. Growth trajectory. I'd love to see us double the number of interns and continue to use Ascend Indiana as a recruiting engine for us. Indyfluence is the unique program, a talent attraction program that is having big success. Bridget Boyle from Roche Diagnostics, thanks very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much. All right. Well, in our next half hour, how Evansville-based Old National Bank is making the path to finding good jobs easier for people with disabilities. More on the mission and success of the bank's Achievability program. Well, when people with disabilities try to find work, they are met with rejection more often than not. Evansville-based Old National Bank has developed a unique program to help reverse that dynamic. It's called Achievability, and it connects aspiring professionals with disabilities, people with spinal cord injuries, visual impairments, autism, with leaders at ONB for a nearly year-long mentoring program. And for more on the Achievability program, pleased to be joined on the show by someone who has certainly benefited directly from the initiative, Ben Trockman. Ben, welcome to the show.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Ben coming to us from from Old National Bank in Evansville. Ben, this is I think, and we've done some things on this program before, truly a unique program developed at Old National. We'll talk about essentially kind of the, for lack of a better term, the business model, the model, and what this is all about, how it works.
Sure. Essentially, what we do is we find aspiring young professionals through recruiting at universities throughout Old National's 5-state footprint. And we asked those universities' disability services offices, which most universities have a disability services office, to just make recommendations of bright young people that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. And I have an exploratory interview with young people. I conduct many handfuls of exploratory interviews each year and get to know a lot of great young people. And when we identify someone that we believe could benefit from a mentorship, that could benefit from networking, we connect them with a leader at Old National Bank for this 10-month-long experience. A little bit more in depth, the program itself is from August until May. We have a couple of different in-person and virtual options to build the class. For instance, this year we'll have about 20 participants from within our 5-state footprint, people of all different abilities, as you mentioned earlier. It's just a really great experience, again, to build confidence of young people and build their professional network to be ready for the future.
And you, what I think is fascinating about this, you were brought into Old National Bank 6 or 7 years ago to really start this and grow this program. So you have really built this program over the past 6 years. Talk about the impact that you have seen and the number of individuals you brought into the fold in terms of hiring, and also some for summer internships.
It's been amazing to see how this program has grown. We started with one person and connected with one mentor and one mentee. And now we have had, in this past 6 years, 114 participants in our program. We have directly hired 10 individuals out of Achievability. We have offered 12 summer internships to former participants of Achievability. When you think about the vast number of jobs that are open in this world, and as you mentioned at the top of this segment, that there are an incredible amount of people out there with disabilities looking for work, connecting them with leaders at the bank, connecting them with confidence, and connecting them with partners, give them an opportunity to gain a summer internship, whether it's with Old National Bank or another community partner. It's all about building and empowering that individual, that young person with a disability, to be better prepared for the future.
And as you and I were talking off camera before the interview, this model, which is unique, is really catching on, getting a lot of attention, Bronability, among companies that really want to try to replicate this and connect with this kind of idea to bring more people into their organization.
Yeah, we are so excited about the partnership with Bronability. They've been an incredible friend. We've had other companies, I won't mention them now because I don't want to put them on the spot, because then they might actually have to do it. But that have, said that they would like to partner with us and share. I've shared my template with Bronability. They've had 3 mentees, 6 participants in the past couple of months. And that's our goal, is to create more inclusive companies, environments, communities. So if there's ever anybody that would want to adopt a similar platform, I'm happy to share my playbook. It's a simple one, but it's a good one.
Well, a lot of people talk about hiring people with disabilities, but not many companies really follow through with the hard work to get it done. Old National, the exception with this unique program. I know senior management has a lot of support for this. Ben Trockman, the Diversity and Inclusion Outreach Specialist there at Old National. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us, and look forward to following up on the story in the months ahead.
Thanks so much. I'll be around.
All right. Well, when college football players hit the gridiron this season, they'll do so under drastically different circumstances. The NCAA's recent policy shift regarding name, image, and likeness has certainly changed the game for student athletes, and schools like Purdue University taking steps to help student athletes navigate these uncharted waters. Purdue Athletics teaming up with the Krannert School of Management and software platform provider Indyfluence to create Empower. And for more on the program, I'm pleased to be joined by Purdue Associate Athletics Director for Compliance, Tom Mitchell. Tom, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about Empower and everything we're doing here at Purdue Athletics.
Yeah, well, first of all, give us an idea, because I can only imagine at Purdue and every other university around the country, it's kind of been, I would imagine, a bit crazy trying to deal with this, although I know you've been working on this for some months now, but this name, image, likeness is now official. What's it like trying to really get your arms around what it's really going to mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's been, stayed with me the entire time, and we've been working on this for well over a year, Peyton Stovall, our assistant AD for student athlete development, and I, and then the team we put together within the department, is something my dad used to always say, which is hurry up and wait. And so we tried to fight that, right? We wanted to hurry up and get things going because we knew there was a lot that we could control. And there was a lot we couldn't, but let's try to focus on what we control. So with Empower, what we tried to do is really drill down to everything that we currently did. And for us, we had been doing for 10 to 7 years in terms of, the number of waivers the NCAA had received related to name, image, likeness type employment. There was about 200 of them a couple years ago that they used kind of a benchmark to determine where to shift this legislation. We had 15 of those. We've been pushing the envelope and encouraging the entrepreneurial spirit that we have here at Purdue for our student athletes for at least 7 years. In my tenure here, almost going to year 11, but things really shifted that 7-year window. So we really wanted to look at the partnerships we could build across campus with Krannert School of Management, and then look at where we had maybe some holes and some things that could really help us, or things that we couldn't do for our student athletes.
Yeah, well, let's talk about
Indyfluence came in.
Yeah, talk about that, Tom, because you talk about Purdue's entrepreneurial history and heritage, and that's part of this plan, this partnership with Indyfluence and also the Krannert School of Management, because it's about brand building, entrepreneurship, understanding the brand, and those types of things.
It was really cool when we sat down about 13 months ago. It was last June, but June in 2020, and we didn't want to build a student athlete class. We didn't want to build something that was kind of fake. We wanted something with substance. And when Peyton and I met with Dean Hummel and Michelle Hadley and Sue Dorn with Krannert, they had the same feeling that this generation is different, that they're much more in tune with their personal brand and the brands around them. And so we wanted to build something that really worked for Krannert students, but was also open to cross-section. So we wanted it to be in the summer so that it is open to any student, not just Krannert. And so, yes, there'd be student athletes, but there'd be, regular students. So maybe there's students from the Lamb School of Communication, obviously Krannert students, marketing, graphic design. So hopefully it can kind of be this great little genome where everyone can kind of work together and then maybe build some friendships and maybe build some potential entrepreneur and business partnerships down the line. So this is really like the first step for us, because this class will be part of a personal branding certificate. That process takes about a year. So they've started that. So when that gets solidified, then we'll have that as well. Yeah, I
only have less than a minute here, but what are you hearing from student athletes, not only the higher profile sports like football and basketball, but non-revenue or Olympic sports? How much interest is there in this program, and what are these athletes saying they'd like to do to kind of cash in, pardon the pun?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's going to be local businesses, local little endorsements, maybe showing up and going to a pizza place and getting that benefit. They're very interested in lessons and camps. I think what's going to be interesting to see is where the market goes with things we don't know. One just signed a deal to do a podcast. So I think some of the new media is going to be exciting for them, but also some of the traditional stuff, lessons, camps, those kind of things.
Yeah, very good. Tom Mitchell with Purdue Athletics, a partnership, creating a program called Empower, partnership with Indyfluence, the Krannert School of Management, again, tapping into that entrepreneurial heritage at Purdue. Tom, thanks for joining us. I know this is an evolving story. We'll be following up in the weeks ahead.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me.
All right. Well, this week, Indianapolis-based Kite Realty Group Trust and Chicago's Retail Properties of America announced merger plans in a deal valued at $7.5 billion. Upon completion, the combined company's headquarters will remain in Indianapolis with the Kite Realty Group name. The companies say the deal will create the 5th largest outdoor shopping center real estate company in the U.S. The boards of both organizations have approved the merger, but the transaction must still get the okay from shareholders. The companies expect the transaction to close during the 4th quarter. Up next, high expectations for the Indianapolis Colts as they prepare to kick off a new season with a new quarterback under center.
What's up? Hello. Goodbye.
It's Thursday. It's a great day for some football. Let's get it.
What a difference a year makes. Fans allowed in to watch training camp and a full house expected at Lucas Oil Stadium. More on the Colts when we come back.
We're excited. We're excited for this new opportunity and hopefully to start building something special here in Indy and be a part of something special that's already been created here.
Colts quarterback Carson Wentz on his new role as the man leading the charge in Indianapolis. Wentz and his Colts teammates are back, and just as importantly, so are their fans as training camp begins at Westfield's Grand Park. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Thanks, Gary. As with all NFL franchises, the Colts had to hold training camp in the privacy of their own practice facility last year. But with the pandemic restrictions easing, the Colts are returning to Grand Park in Westfield and inviting their following to do the same, though with a few caveats. And with us to provide more detail is Steve Campbell, the Colts Vice President of Communications. Steve, welcome. Good to see you again, my friend.
Oh, it's good to be here in person.
Well, and again, it's good to be talking football, and it's great to be talking football with fans in attendance as Colts training camp opens up in the coming week.
Absolutely. As Jim Irsay has said many times, football games and training camp and everything that we do, they're like family reunions, and it's just not the same without fans. It just really isn't. And we saw that on game day, and we saw that at training camp last year. So we are thrilled that we're going to be able to welcome Colts Nation back to Grand Park, so they can be alongside us every step of this journey.
And there will be some protocols that I know that you want people to be aware of as they make their way.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, because COVID is still lingering in our city and state and country, there are still some NFL protocols that are in place. One of the best things that we love about training camp with fans is that fans have generally been able to go up and get autographs and take pictures with players and coaches. But because of COVID protocols this year, we're not going to be able to allow autographs or photos with players and coaches. But we think that there's still a lot of action to see, a lot of activities, a lot of things for people to do up at Grand Park during training camp.
Well, and you're going to have again lots of interactive activities for fans of all ages and themed days throughout the month.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big features of training camp is Colt City, which is I describe it as kind of a carnival, which is attached to training camp. And so we have Colts inflatables, contests, the pro shop, lots of things for fans to do while they're, during practice or after practice, before or after practice. And then we have theme days where we're going to be recognizing lots of different folks in our community. We have a day for kids. We have a back to school day. We have a mom's day. We have a day where we're going to honor our armed forces. And then we're also going to honor frontline workers, essential workers that have been working so hard over the last year with the pandemic. And so a lot of different opportunities for fans to come out and choose a day that suits them the best.
And camp is free, but fans will need to have tickets. Is that
correct?
Yes,
absolutely. Camp is free every single day that practice is open, and Colt City and practice are all free. But fans need to go to colts.com/camp to download a free ticket to enter every day.
An ongoing initiative of the Colts that came up during the past year, kicking the stigma. A very impressive campaign led by your owner, Jim Irsay, really addressing everything that revolves around mental health issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Mental health has always been an issue, in the country and in the world. But it's one of those issues we don't like to talk about. Something that Jim said recently is that when you break your ankle or you have a pain in your eye Hawaii or somewhere, you immediately go to a doctor. But with mental health, people are often hesitant to go seek that help or to share their story. And so what the Ursays wanted to do, it's being led by Jim and his one of his daughters, Kaylin Jackson, was to remove the stigma from mental health and encourage people to talk about it and seek help. So we've been promoting this effort through PSAs. We had a virtual fundraiser in May, which was Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's something that the Ursay family is personal to them and that they care about very deeply. And we'll be spotlighting this issue at a game this year, and we'll be spotlighting it this day going forward.
Yeah, it's not. It will continue during the season. Speaking of the season, okay, the impressive schedule. A lot of people say it's going to be a very difficult schedule. You open September 12th, home game Seattle, September 19th, home game with the Rams. I mean, what a way to start the season. How are tickets? I mean, we all got used to sitting at home with our clickers watching NFL football last year. How are ticket sales going?
Ticket sales are actually going pretty well. What we're seeing is that there is a pent-up demand for live events, and we're hearing this across sports, across entertainment, concerts, and things like that. There is a pent-up demand for people wanting to get back out, and we were one of the few teams that hosted fans last season, and those fans were loud and proud, even when we had 5,000 or 10,000. But again, it's just not the same. So we're very thrilled that it's going to be this way this year.
Steve, quickly as we wrap it up, you pointed out, I didn't realize this. Carson Wentz, of course, everybody is excited about Carson Wentz, but he's the 4th quarterback in 4 years for the Indianapolis Colts, and so I know people will be eager to see him, but that's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, we're a city that got used to Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck, and for so long, and of course we're grateful to both of those great quarterbacks. But the last few years have been a little bit tumultuous at the quarterback position. We had Andrew Luck, and then Jacoby Brissett, and Phillip Rivers, and now Carson Wentz. But Frank Reich is the right coach and the right person to lead that position and to lead Carson on this team.
Well, it's exciting to think about the Indianapolis Colts. Again, training camp starts this next week, and Steve Campbell, thanks for being on the program with us. Best of luck.
Always our pleasure.
All right, Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, Indianapolis-based IndyCar has announced a multi-year extension of its media rights agreement with NBC Sports. Financial terms not being disclosed, but the partners say it includes an increased presence for the NTT IndyCar Series beginning next year, with 13 races to be broadcast on NBC. The remaining races will be shown exclusively on USA Network and Peacock, NBC's streaming service, with 2 races each. The streaming service will also simulcast all races. The extension comes as IndyCar is seeing a 30% increase in viewership through the first 9 races of this season. This year's running of the Indianapolis 500, also the most watched race since 2016. Well, sports are a major component of Indianapolis's $5.4 billion tourism industry. Chris Gall is a key player in charge of promoting those big sporting events and the city as a destination spot for tourists and conventions. He's my guest this week on the Business and Beyond podcast. Gall is a Hoosier at heart, played basketball and graduated from Pike High School, went on to earn a degree from Butler University. He spent a great deal of time in Hawaii, where his mother has family, and it was there that he really got a start in the tourism industry. Gall has faced challenges over the years, a testicular cancer diagnosis in 2018, and the loss of his father at the age of 8.
He was a federal probation officer, so he would have officed downtown here at the federal probation office within the federal building, and he was there to help, not hurt individuals. And so in September of 1986, I said goodbye, and he went to the Fountain Square neighborhood to call on someone he had only met once, someone who had been convicted for everything but murder and suspected in murder, someone who had just got out of federal prison, and my dad was there to help him rehabilitate, a gentleman by the name of Michael Wayne Jackson. And he was not mentally stable, and he was not getting the help he needed. And so he murdered my dad very blatantly, and he went on to murder 2 other people. And he eluded the FBI for more than 2 weeks and finally took his own life in rural Missouri. And so as a kid, I vividly remember attending Guyan Creek Elementary School in Pike Township and getting called from the playground by my teacher that I needed to go to the office, which was unusual for me because I was not in trouble. And I remember thinking something was not right. And when I hit the office, there stood my mom and our pastor. And my mom said, "Your dad went to heaven today." And I remember clenching my fists and thinking very quickly, what did that mean? And my little 8-year-old brain trying to process this. And so that has changed me in every way, from faith to family, from the importance of what's important, what's not. It's also scared me a lot. It's shaped me in ways probably I still don't realize.
Much more with Visit Indy's Chris Gall in the newest edition of the Business and Beyond podcast that starts Monday. To check it out, just go to InsideIndianaBusiness.com and click on the subscribe tab. Well, nearly 9 million meals delivered over 50 years. More on Meals on Wheels of Central Indiana, marking 5 decades of service to homebound Hoosiers. Well, for 5 decades, Meals on Wheels of Central Indiana has served as a lifeline to Hoosiers who are homebound or battling chronic illness. In fact, volunteers have served a staggering number of meals, nearly 9 million, since the organization started in 1971. Meals on Wheels saw a huge spike in requests for food during the pandemic, a 160% increase, but the organization answered the call, managed to stay open, and at the height of the pandemic was delivering about 30 to 40,000 additional meals. For more on the mission of Meals on Wheels, pleased to be joined by Board President Lisa Dillman. Lisa, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep, and congratulations on this milestone. 50 years doing anything is a big accomplishment. And it's interesting that Meals on Wheels Central Indiana is really a unique and separate organization from the national Meals on Wheels organization. You're an independent organization.
That's right. We are based in Central Indiana. Our operation has grown so much over the last several years that we serve the entire state of Indiana. Wow. But you're right. We are independent, and we're not affiliated with Meals on Wheels of America. We work in close partnership with them, and we share a lot of common ideals. But we're a Hoosier organization. Yeah. So 50 years, but these last couple of years certainly have been noteworthy, especially the impact of the pandemic. As I mentioned in the introduction, the organization really stepped up, and it was a real challenge because you lost a number of volunteers because of their age and potential to get COVID. You lost some volunteers, but had some step up. Talk about last year, the pandemic, and how the organization actually grew. Sure. You're right. We had a lot of our volunteers are retired, and they found themselves in a high-risk category and didn't feel comfortable getting out and covering their routes. And just when we thought that, that could really interrupt our delivery production, we had an outpouring from the community of folks who were sent home and who had a lot of extra time on their hands. They stepped up, and really all together we became essential workers in a sense, and we kept those meals delivered. And you're right, we increased 30 to 40,000 meals a month during that time.
Wow, in total some 430,000 meals delivered last year. And as you and I were talking off camera, looking to the future, how you sustain the organization, you talk about a big pivot that the organization made 4 or 5 years ago. Talk about that pivot to these medically specific meals and what that could mean to the future of the organization.
Absolutely. We joined an organization called Food is Medicine and made a commitment as an organization that we were going to not just deliver meals, but we were going to deliver what's called medically tailored nutrition to our clients, which essentially is, let's say that I have a chronic disease, let's say it's diabetes, and I have a prescription for a certain meal that fits my nutritional needs as a diabetic. I get a diabetic-friendly meal, whereas another client may get a meal that's tailored to their chronic illness.
Yeah, so going forward, I would assume that has real growth potential for the organization and will be of interest to a lot of people here in Central Indiana and around the state.
it's not only an interest to our clients and our prospective clients, but it's really important to the partners that we're working with, the hospitals that we partner with, the insurance companies that we partner with. Good medically tailored nutrition makes their clients healthier in the long run. So it really is a win-win. And I attribute our growth to this change in philosophy that we've made here within the last few years.
Meals on Wheels of Central Indiana celebrating 50 years and innovating to be sure they'll be around another 50 years as well. Lisa Dillman, the board president there. Lisa, thanks for joining us again, and congratulations on the milestone.
Thank you very much.
All right. And I'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, Connexus Indiana launching a new statewide campaign. We'll tell you about Make Indiana Move and its mission to educate Indiana's emerging workforce, younger workers. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.